There. I think it's normal. Close to it, anyway. Yeah, so this should be interesting today. Man, there's a lot of people on YouTube already.
Yep.
Ava says, you cut your hair, Scott. Yeah, I did. There's a little delay between here and there. Let me see what it is. So if you're watching this, this is for Body Language Membership, and you can join at bodylanguagemembership.com, and we have the best time in there. We have a training academy where you can go in and we put up lessons every month, and we do these live Q&As. We've tried to do them every week, but we've been traveling, so you'll see some of those. Can't tell you about it yet, but you'll see it fairly soon. And then we've got a little mini course when you first go in. You got a little mini course you can go through, so you can be brought up to speed on the things we talk about body language, the specifics of where to begin. So you won't just be in there looking around trying to find stuff. You'll have a pretty good handle on what's happening when you first come in. And we do these surprise Zoom calls too, where we get people. We see somebody in there and go, "Hey man, you want a Zoom call? You know, do a quick Zoom." So we'll Zoom with people, or we'll put a little thing up that says, "Hey, we'll take the first 5 people." I like to take the first one I see in there, somebody just cruising around, get them in there and do it. Or we'll say, like, the first 5 people, those are always fun. And then we don't take any more than that. We also goof off for an hour. We talk about body language, but it's not really goofing off, but it's not all serious and stuff. So,
yeah, I think the other thing that's good behind the firewall is we have a bunch of interviews with people we find interesting, folks that we have written books. I just did a book review with kind of like book TV, if you will, with Chase around 6 Minute X-Ray, where we talk not about the book itself, but about what he was thinking when he put it together. So hopefully when you read the book, you get their voice.
That came out good.
We had some other fun. Well, thanks. It was a hell of a lot of fun talking to Chase.
You're good at that. You're good at reviewing, doing book reviews. When I do yours, it's going to be horrible. Tell me about your book, Greg. What were you thinking? Where do you get all your ideas for books?
It was fun. It'll be fun. We'll do that one. I got John. I got to get back in touch with John Nolan, let him come in and do his confidential book. I think that will be a good one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that'd be great.
That's a good book. That's a great book. He taught me elicitation. I went to train the trainer for him when I worked for him. Really good, eye-opening stuff. The way he does it.
Well, we can start now, so we're on the hour, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, well, welcome to Body Language Membership. This is the live Q&A. This is our 12th one. And what we do on here is we take questions from inside the membership and we answer them. So people that are in the membership, they're the ones that are going to be asking the questions. If we don't get enough questions in there, then we run over to YouTube real quick and get some questions there and then answer those. But so if you're on YouTube and we don't answer your question, that's what's going on. But don't not ask them, because if we run low over there in the membership, we haven't yet, but if we do, that's where we're going to go to get questions from. So don't be afraid to do that. And if you want to join Body Language Membership, just go to bodylanguagemembership.com and at least take a look. You can see what it is. It's pretty fun. And we're having a blast in there. So, all right, Greg, you got questions up?
Yeah, I pulled the first one, and I'm just going to grab the first one I see. And this is from Diana, and it says, "This is for Greg. Other than wearing medals they did not earn or telling an outlandish story, what kind of behaviors might indicate a military person, what kind of behavioral indicators might a military person exhibit when misrepresenting parts of their military service for some sort of gain?" Well, the problem with most of these guys, forget for just a minute the full-blown stolen valor, the guy with the, ribbons on the wrong side and all that kind of thing that we can pick up from a distance. Most people will get very non-specific. They'll talk in specifics about the rest of their career, but when you start probing or asking questions, they'll talk in very non-specific terms about what they were doing there, because they don't want to outright lie most of the time. Most people who've been in the military know that everything that they say is checkable. I mean, people have a service record that they can, when they get out, it says what they did for a living, which ribbons, medals, which schools, unless they were doing something that was real deep cover and that kind of thing. And then you're not ever going to find that out. And they're not going to tell you that. Anybody who tells you, I'm deep cover, and they're not. So most of the time, it's just non-specific language around it. And military people talk in jargon. When they start going into jargon that sounds like it's making it up, it's making it up. When you talk about our jobs, we have codes for those. So, for example, when I was an interrogator, it was a 97 Echo. Everybody knows what that is. They've changed it now to, I think, 35 Echo or 351 Echo or something like that. But those codes tell you what job somebody did, and they have all kinds of identifiers on the end. So we talk in geek language when we talk about our careers usually. Hopefully that helps. Yeah. That's just one indicator. The guys who are full-blown stolen valor guys who have all the ribbons and medals in the wrong places, or the fat guy in the uniform is too small for him, or the guy who has uniform is too big for him. All those kinds of things. Those are just dead giveaways to us.
Brian Jaffe's in here, and I always hi Byron.
Hey, Brian.
I always call him. I have dyslexia, so he spells it Bryon. But and forever I was calling him Byron. He's like, yeah, Byron, and he's like, no, it's Brian. I'm like, oh, okay, looks like Byron.
I'll
to me.
stood to tell you that Brian said hi this weekend. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Okay, here's one from Kathy Brennan. She says, nice haircut, Scott. Thank you. Do you think body language should be taught in schools? I believe knowledge is power. We've seen in here that body language membership, how it has a positive effect with a member and gave them enough confidence to handle a situation. I always talk about the gift of fear with my young adult kids. Yeah, that is actually a really great question. It would be great if it were taught in schools, but it's tough to. A curriculum for that would be fairly tough, I think, to put together because it would just be the basics. And then you'd have people that think, well, they would get into culture, which is you have to talk about culture as well. It would be really, really deep. But I think it's at least good for high school if you could do something like that. Have some in a communications class. I don't know. You think it should be a communications class? What would that be, Greg, if you were going to do something?
Yeah, the only problem I have with teaching it in high school is the curriculum would have to be very tight. I'll give you a great example. In high school, I learned that. In a psychology class, learn that is blocking someone out. And that's absolutist thinking. So you'd have to get to the right curriculum. I think you just have to be careful with it. I think opening kids' eyes early is good. Tom Fraze, if you're watching, I have a good friend named Tom Fraze who thinks that's a great idea. And we talked about it a little bit back and forth. I owe you a call a little bit later.
Hi, Aaron.
Yeah, I think you just got to be careful with what you would put in there.
Yeah, let's see here. Let's see. Man, these are filling up quick. Look, here's one from Jenna. I've read a person's feet and or chest will point toward the door if they want to leave a room. Can we get someone to reposition? How? Let's see. And could repositioning change their mind and influence them to stay? Usually what you're looking at in that case, it's not what you would do that would necessarily influence what they would think about leaving, because they're probably not paying attention to that. You may hear different ideas or takes or stories about that. But you can use that tool like this. If you're in an office, let's say, and someone pops in really quick and you see somebody walk by and you say, hey, come here a minute, and you talk to them for a minute and you can see their feet are sort of pointed toward the door, let them go. Go ahead and let them go, because they're most likely need to leave. Or if they're aimed this way, as they're talking to you, maybe that's their way of showing you they're ready to go or need to go. But if you see that, let them go. It's really tough to persuade someone to stay. There are a lot of ways to do it, and it's a skill and an art to get someone to stay talking to you. But that comes under questioning and how you question them and how you pause and those kind of things. But that's a 4-hour. That's almost a course. To get to
that is a
when
course.
You get into that stuff. So
yeah, two things I would add there, guys. I always say we're designed to read this stuff. Pay attention. You'll be surprised what you see without using our words for it. We're just trying to give you commonality, ways of talking about this, but you're designed to read this stuff. Just pay attention. But yeah, I mean, the foot pointing toward the door and Scott's point, the only thing you got to be careful about when their feet may point toward the door or they may stand at obliques, it might be baseline for them, especially with introverted people who may not stand square on when they're talking to you. So you just got to be careful. Or two guys may stand at obliques just because it's posturing if you stand square on. So just remember to get a baseline. And then when you see that deviation, he's right. Unless you really want to work to hold on to them, you may be better off just saying, hey, you'll make them happier if you say, hey, I can see you got to go somewhere. How about we set up another time to talk? You'll make them feel better anyway.
Hey, here's one from Ed Walden, and he says, Greg, you mentioned mentioned index to ring finger ratios. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, and Ed, I'll put that study up. It's relationship between your ring finger and your index finger. The longer your ring finger to index finger is, supposedly the more testosterone you were exposed to in the womb and your development. I don't know that there's a study that says that you have more free testosterone flowing in your system, but how that wires your brain and how that affects your brain in utero is what the piece is, and how it starts to structure your brain. So people are more liable to be, to have a certain male traits or more masculine traits. And there's a book I just picked up called Brain Gender that I'm going to read through all that stuff and try to get that all locked down. I'll put that study up in there, but it's that ring to index finger. And, you can look at people's hands and get a feel for it.
I read some studies on the brain and gender. We can't talk about it here because I don't know what you're allowed to say these days about that. But, man, it sure was fascinating. It really was fascinating. That whole, man, it was good. It was good.
Well, and just this book starts from the biological premise, and I'll leave it at that. And I'll review it once I finish in the book's review section. But it talks about, how the body is formed, how the brain's formed, how all the body's formed, and what turns you male or female and those things. So kind of an interesting premise. I'll let you know what I think once I read the book.
And that book, The Female Brain.
Yep.
That was a great book. Let's see. Oh, it's your turn. You ask one, Greg.
Let's see. Let me go in.
I'll ask one. Kathy Utley asks, are you watching the... Oh, is that the one you're going? Go ahead.
Go for it, yeah. No, go for it, please.
Are you watching the video of Ukraine, and do you watch the body language of those interviewed? Yeah. Shoot, yeah. I'm all over that. I watch that stuff every day. I watch everybody involved with that, from our politicians to the people in Ukraine to Zelensky, you name it. I think we're all on top of that. Just see if we can get a handle on what's really going on over there, because I'm not so sure we're getting all the right information the way things are these days with the news and propaganda. Shoot, you don't know who to listen to, who to believe, or whatever. So I'm using that to make up my own mind about what's going on, about what I think's going on over there. What about you,
guys, when you're watching people interviewed on TV, especially if you're seeing people in a war zone, no one can overstate the impact of a war zone. People use that term like it is something to bat around, on the psyche of a person there, because everything that you know and everything that you trust and everything that you believe is gone. The day all that bombing starts, all uncertainty, everything changes in your psyche, and you can't get a normal baseline out of people. So you just got to look for if they're shifting and all that. You're not going to get a normal baseline. What you're going to do is find fight or flight. You're going to find uncertainty. You're going to find shock, all kinds of things in people. My experience with war, and actually being in the front area where the war was going on. Now, I wouldn't say that the war I was in was anything like this war, because the shooting was mostly taken care of by air for us. So we were more like, in the case of the Russians and these guys. But by the time you get on the ground and all of that has gone on, people are devastated and they're shocked to the point it doesn't matter how they got there, but just watch for that. Look at all the shock in these people and how panicked they'll be and that kind of thing. It's a good way to see.
Here's a good one from Rachel Lucy. And she says, can you comment on the possibility of rehabilitating criminal psychopaths? And do you think it's even possible? They tried it and it didn't work. Because what happens is this. With a psychopath, you're not dealing with someone who has an emotional problem and is not... hasn't found the correct coping skills or doesn't know how to cope with people. They know exactly what to do, and they use it. They're predators. So what happens in this case, it's the makeup of their brain. Their amygdalas the amygdala isn't functioning properly. So what would happen is this. They would do that. They would go in and just spend a long time, years with these people trying to rehabilitate a psychopath. And all they were doing was teaching them how to act normally. So when they went back out, they were still predators, and they'd always, most of the time, end up back in. And maybe every time they ended up being back in. But that's what would happen to them, because they can't help it. That's what they do. They're predators. It's like that old story about the frog and the scorpion. The frog is waiting on the side of the bank of the creek, or the scorpion's on the side of the creek, and the frog's sitting there in the water, and he goes, "Hey man, what are you doing over here?" And the scorpion says, "I'm trying to get across the creek. Will you give me a ride?" He says, "No, I won't give you a ride. Are you kidding me? You'll sting me." He goes, "Are you kidding me? I'm going to sting you when we're going across the creek here. I'm going to drown. If you drown, I'm going to drown. That's for dang sure. We know that. So no, I'm not going to sting you, man. You lost your mind?" And so he thought about it, and he says, "Okay, all right, I'll get you close. I'll get you close, and you can jump off. So we'll give that a shot." He said, "All right, great." The scorpion jumps on the frog's back, and he's swimming across, and the scorpion stings him. And the frog goes, what the hell, man? Why'd you sting me?" And he said, "Because I'm a scorpion, and that's what scorpions do. They sting frogs." So you can take a psychopath and you can try to fix them, but they can't be fixed. That's
and one caveat, guys.
Sure.
You can't fix that. And the thing is to remember, Scott made a very valid point, though, that the guys who hunt people, that's the psychopath who not all psychopaths are violent. Not all psychopaths are dangerous.
Right.
Some of them are just performing missions today. Fighter pilots that are psychopaths. You got people who are you got people in high stress situations who are psychopaths biologically, but they don't prey on people. They don't do those things that you're talking about. So Scott made a very significant point there when he said the people who prey on people, that's who they are. I think that's an important point.
Okay. Somebody asked about some books down here. Wait a minute.
Yeah, there was another one in here I saw it looked pretty good too.
Somebody asked books. Muge. I remember that's who asked it. But dang, we're getting so many in here. I can't keep. There it is. Muge Mercer. Not body language related, but more statement analysis related. I read Peter Hyatt and Mark McClish's books. Do you suggest any other good books on statement analysis? Greg, you got anything?
Hyatt's my go-to these days.
Me too.
Right over there. We'll dig for a couple and find you a couple of others. I mean, there's a ton of guys who've done work, but Hyatt and Avinum are the ones that I've looked at in the past. So.
The Secret Life of Pronouns is good. That's a good one. I think that's the name of it. I've got it on my Kindle. Where's my Kindle? Here it is. Yeah, I think it's the Secret
Sadie,
Life
thanks for noticing our hair.
And Sadie, good luck at home. I know you're having a tough time out there. Sadie has a illness in the family. So good luck with that. We're praying for you. Let me see what's on my Kindle here as far as that stuff goes.
All right.
Secret Life of Pronouns. That's what it is. Okay, what else? Now, if you want to join Body Language Membership, all you got to do is go to bodylanguagemembership.com and join. At least go and take a look at the landing page there is what they call it. And you can see what we do in here. I think there's a video of me and Greg talking and then a couple other things that'll give you an idea of what happens. Like we were saying before, there's a little mini course in there. So if you don't know that much about body language, if you're just getting into it, look at this like Facebook without the ads, and all it is about body language. And the little mini course brings you up to date on what we're doing, what we're talking about on there. Give you the basics of what's happening. All kinds of stuff going on there. We have the best time, and we do this as often as we can. We're going to start every week again, but we've got a lot of traveling going on right now, so. It's been
and the community is an ongoing conversation. Even when we're not involved, we get some really interesting things. And there's a couple going on right now, a couple of studies and a couple of batting things around that are really good. And folks talking about how they're using this in their daily life. I think that's important. One here that I saw was Suki says, how do I get into a career in deception and body language? There doesn't seem to be any university courses or specific career paths. Well, you're dead on. One of the things that I've said many times is there really isn't a single path. There's not a single path to getting here. It's what I think makes this fun for me is the four of us doing the behavior panel and then Scott and I doing the body language membership and writing together and doing this stuff because we come at it from different angles. Scott's primarily has been with civilian prisoners and mine's been with military prisoners and civilians in the case of, terrorism and that kind of thing, but with mostly prisoners of war. And then you get Mark, who came at it from a different direction. You get Chase, who came at it from a different direction. And Chase and I even talking about it, he came from a different interrogation angle than I did. And then you get folks who came at it from the counterintelligence angle. So I think what makes it work is the life experience. You get people like Janine Driver, who was an ATF agent. You get people like Joe Navarro, who was an FBI agent. And getting all those different areas is how you get here. Today, there's not really a school. There's not really a school that says this or this or this. So I think it's working your way toward it and getting enough credentialing behind you to say, look, everybody wants to know where your 10,000 hours came in. It's getting your feet wet and getting out there and doing. So
4 million.
And we'll keep looking. We'll keep looking for ways to make that better over time.
Okay, here's one from Norma. Scott, when a narcissist changes his attitudes completely, can that be sincere or is it a part of a plan he has? What should I pay attention to in order not to get caught up in his web? Boy, I tell you, when you start talking about narcissism and narcissists, that's especially the clinical narcissist, that's a deep hole to be in there poking around and saying, oh, it means this and it means that. Quite often, there's no time where they'll come to a realization and snap out of it. That's not going to happen. So you sort of have to live with it and deal with that person as that, knowing what they are, once you figure out what they are. And these days, a lot of people are learning about narcissism, and they're figuring out about these people they're living with or know. So they're having be it a parent, somebody they're married to, boyfriend, girlfriend, or just a friend or somebody they work for. So it's people are really finding out, and there are a lot of great books on that as well. How to deal with them because of what they are. A lot of times you can just turn it off and hate them and say, I totally get what that is. Whoops, sorry. I know what that is, and I hate that person now, or I'm not gonna have anything to do with them. That might be the approach, So it's really tough for them just to one day turn that off and go, oh, I get it, or some other event happened to them where they change like that. Man, that would be really, really tough because it's part of their personality buildup, not from just a recent situation, but from when they were little kids. They grew up that way. So I don't know. I would. Maybe they're trying. Maybe they're trying to get to normal and understand that better. So I don't know if I could say give them a shot, but you never know. You got to be careful with all that.
Just remember, a narcissist usually has low self-esteem. There's a reason for all the self-aggrandizing and all that stuff. So if there's some cue in their personality that causes them to feel more assured or less assured, you're liable to see a change. I mean, they're people, and people are, stimulus affects all of us. There are different ways it affects different disorders and that kind of thing. Like when we talk about a psychopath, the same stimulus may not affect a psychopath as affects an average person. And the same thing with a narcissist. Just remember that self-esteem, that stuff that's in there that may cause them to bolster or go back and rethink. There's a whole lot going on in there. That's in my experience. And I would tell you, like Scott said, there are many books out there on narcissism, and you can dig in and look at them from different angles.
Here's one from Carrie Gormley. Hi, Carrie. And she says, Scott, you've talked about helping entrepreneurs get funding on Shark Tank. What are some tools, skills, and techniques you recommend when pitching? That's a whole course, too. But that's what I did at the Entrepreneur Center in Nashville from 2011 to 2017. I was the entrepreneur in residence there. And really what I did was train the new entrepreneurs and startups how to create what I called an investable pitch. And the whole thing was how to create an investable pitch. So we go from the very beginning, from when you walk in to the time you walk out, the last things you say on the way out, and how to set up a slide deck, and how to set up the specific parts that everybody wants to know. All those questions you hear on Shark Tank, you've got to answer all those so they don't have to ask them, unless they want details about all those. It goes really, really deep. I'll be doing a thing about that. We're going to do we have a convention thing coming up in Las Vegas. It's like 3 days of training. And while we're there, one of the things I'm going to do is like a pitching situation and sort of walk everybody through how to create an investable pitch. I'm not going to go super deep on the stuff that most people find boring in the financials and in those situations, but I'll tell you what to look for. For example, you're probably asking because you may go watch someone pitch. You may be one of those, maybe an investor. So you need to know what to look for when you're doing that. So knocking out those things that people like you would be looking for, people like us would be looking for, is part of that training as well. A lot of people will do things that they don't realize make people distrust them. One of the things I always point out when it comes to entrepreneurs when they're pitching is when you start talking about finances. As soon as finances come up, that's when you really got to focus on them. And you'll notice a lot of people, a lot of investors, that's when they'll really start focusing on that person, because that's when you'll see all little cues that tell you something might not be right there. It might not be that they're lying to you. Like quite often what happens is they'll be mistaken for being dishonest or being deceptive or they don't look right, and I don't know why, because the information they're getting from their financials is coming from their financial person. And the CEO is usually the one pitching. So as he or she is telling you all this stuff, they may not know the details of that. So they may feel a little bit insecure about it. So you've got to be able to see what the difference is in someone who's being deceptive and someone who's just not sure about what they're saying, but not being deceptive with you. Because when it comes down to it, they're going to say, well, let's talk to so-and-so. He or she is our financial person. So let's talk to them, CFO. A lot of things come with that. But we'll be talking about that at our thing in Las Vegas. And what is it, July 8th and through the 10th or 7th through the 10th, Greg? Do we know?
7th through the 10th. We land on the 7th, do cocktail hour, and then 8th, 9th, 10th.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
It's all.
Yeah, Scott, it's funny. I think people always think of the interrogator side of me. They always think of that military component of my personality. When I mention the Wall Street stuff and working in business, that part goes out the window for most people because I still look like the interrogator piece. But what you just said is key. When I'm talking to somebody and we're looking at a business, you're going to buy a business, you got to pay attention to the person and why that may be happening. It's what we always say is take into account why, not just the what. So I love what you do with that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good thing.
Thank you. Let's see here. Boy, have you looked at us on the web? We look horrible. I look like a fish or something. My skin tone is like, oh my Lord, I get this camera thing. I got a new camera, so I'm trying to get that figured out. So
we just adjusted lighting before this, so you guys just have to deal with our vanity.
But I'll get in when we do the replay for this, because we'll put that in the community in the body language membership, and I'll fix the color so we don't look so odd.
Linda, you have a great question. How much should I know about the brain in order to best comprehend what drives behavior and neurological process? Well, I think if you get to brain, Scott, I'll jump on this and let you take it as well.
No, you do it, because I'll be reading.
If you're looking at brain anomalies, like somebody has brain injury, that kind of thing, then it certainly matters. I mean, I've actually talked to somebody once in an interview who had traumatic brain injury to the point that they were just scattered. There was not much there. But for the most part, assume a certain level of brain function. Then it's about looking for behavior. I always say I'm the sharp stick and sandy beach guy. I'm the guy who wants the quickest answer, the easiest. I look for deviation. And if you can baseline a person to look for what's normal for them, it will not matter unless they have something profound, it will not matter what you're seeing. I got a good friend who has Tourette's, and when he is normal, when he is level and everything's going okay, he ticks very little. When I first met him, he was in his 20s, and he ticked a fair amount. But when things would change, where that was way high up ticks or really slow down in the ticks, it meant something was going on for him stress-wise. So I think if you can take a baseline, then you don't have to dig too much into brain function to be good at figuring out what's going on. You should be able to tell that something's changing in the person, and then you look for why. Look for stimulus, look for the things that caused it. Hopefully that helps, Linda. Great question. Love it.
Yeah. Okay, here's one from Sunny. She says, have you guys heard about the neurosurgeon who studied psychopaths' brains and used his own brain scan and realized he had similar brain activity? Yeah. But the thing is, he doesn't act like a psychopath. I mean, he does have some of the hallmarks of him, but I'm under the impression he's more autistic than suffering from psychopathy. I can't remember his name, but he's a doctor, and I read all that stuff, watched all of his videos, and listened to his interviews. On one hand, you look at him and say, well, he's going out and talking about it, and he's trying to get a bunch of attention for himself. Boom, there's one. Fairly smart, but all psychopaths aren't really smart, but he is in a position of power. One thing he did talk about, though, in this one, when he was doing an interview, he would talk about how he'd take his family on these really dangerous trips. They'd go up and go on these water rafting things with little kids in the boat. Now, go out there where it was dangerous and this stuff. And so that stuff was just crazy if it's true, which I don't see a reason why it wouldn't be. But I got the impression he was more autistic than psychopathic. But I haven't talked to the guy. Sometimes it takes 6 months to a year to be able to diagnose somebody. And when we see people on these on the behavior panel, when we break down someone's behavior and we look at them and go, oh, that person's a psychopath, we're looking at an extreme there. Quite often you don't know it when you go in. You have this person isn't in trouble for killing somebody or something or doing all these horrible things. They're in trouble for some money, stealing money or something. So you start making those decisions then. But I'm under the impression that guy was more autistic than anything. I'm not so sure. He could be a psychopath, though. Like we were talking about earlier, thank God we have some that don't have a problem. Don't want to go out and kill people. They want to fight on. They want to be on the good side, because I can promise you, from watching what these guys do and hearing the stories of what our people do, going in and saving these people, what they have to go through to save them. Ooh, you go, no way. When they make those movies and stuff, I mean, it's worse than that a lot of times. I'm sure you can attest to that, Greg. But yeah,
sure. Yeah. I just lost a cousin not long ago who, in the Vietnam War, he just passed from age, but during the Vietnam War, he was one of the guys who went to pick up downed pilots And God bless people who do that, because
that's crazy.
You're going into hostile fire zones sometimes, but even when you don't, it's just a horrible job. It's one of those places where nothing good comes of it for the person.
And if anything goes wrong, you're over there with them then. You know what I mean? You're just with a big smoke thing telling exactly where you are. Whew. That's not. Oh, here's one from Jenna. What is haptics, Greg?
I'll let you take that one.
Now, haptics is anything like what's a good explanation of it? It's feeling things, moving things, touching things. What is a good definition for that?
Movement, kinesthetic stuff.
Yeah, it's really broad. I never, you think you know these things, and I understand haptics.
That's one I don't use.
What a definition would be.
So. Yep.
Yeah.
Ed, you asked about a behavior panel outtakes reel. We have been very careful with that one because we don't want it to just be cutesy garbage. But yeah, we do it so often. We make mistakes so often in there joking that, remember, part of this is like a bunch of 12-year-old boys getting together for the week, and we're joking and doing that. We got to be careful with not being too childish or too silly at times.
Yeah. And plus, when we do those shows, here's what happens. We get on, and for the first 30, 45 minutes, all we're doing is goofing off and
that's right.
Telling what funny's happened, or if one of us has had an experience that we need to tell everybody else about, we have that in there. And the same thing when it's done. So we get all of our yah-yahs and goops and hoops and hollers out before we start, but because what we're talking about most of the time is really, really serious. Quite often when we're doing something, we don't realize, and when we talk about something horrible, we'll come back and look like we're laughing because we're just smarting off in between those things. So you don't deep dive into how horrible that is. That's the way I stay out of it anyway. I mean, most of that stuff's not funny, but saying stuff around it to make each other laugh, get your mind out of that hole real quick so you can talk normally. It sounds crazy. You see cops do it when they're on horrible crime scenes. There's that dark humor you'll see in here or there, but that's just to keep your head from going deep into it.
Yeah, gallows humor is an American trait too. There's a very famous, I shouldn't say famous, but a story of the Hanoi Hilton when they were marching all these soldiers down the street in Hanoi, all these downed pilots and aviators and that. And the North Vietnamese told this guy, he kept saying, I got to go to the bathroom, I got to go to the bathroom, I got to go to the bathroom. And finally they pulled him out of the truck and beat him pretty good, put him back in the truck, and he looked over at his friends and he said, I didn't have to go, and he peed all over himself, and he said, I didn't have to go to the bathroom that bad. So gallows humor is a way to offset some of the stress that we see, and we do it all the time. I will say cops are worse at it, dark humor and that kind of thing. Doesn't mean that they're evil people. It means you just got to, that steam's got to go somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, here's Carrie again. She says, glad to hear that there is going to be a class in Vegas on pitching. Are there still tickets available for the VIP day in Vegas? I think so. I think we have some left.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
If you go to thebehaviorpanel.com, that'll take you to the page that tells about the Vegas thing. But if you've used that before to go to the YouTube page, you'll have to refresh or something, because my wife went in and said, it's still going to the YouTube page. And I was like, well, you have to redo the thing. So she had to go to another browser to make it work. So we got that out of there. I live near here's one from Bendy. I live near the Canadian border and wonder what kind of body language tactics custom officials might be using. Well, they'll be looking for things, maybe not what they're doing to show you. You've got your training where you have to stand a specific way, legs akimbo, and look like you're the one in charge and all that. But what they're looking for is people who quote unquote look sneaky. There are several things you can look for when I'm training those situations. The thing I'm looking for is the person they look too together. They're usually really, really still. Yeah. And they just they'll look around a little bit and they'll give the hello. And it's not that they're an introverted person, they're real quiet, but they stick out. If you could, I'll see if I can find some videos to show you. I think I can use the ones I have, or some of the ones I have. If I can, I'll put them in the membership, of people who are smuggling. And man, some of them are really good. But you can, once they get close, they start doing things that'll cue you in to something might not be right here. You're not right all the time, but that's why you get to look through everybody's bags. So, but sometimes you are right, and sometimes they find some great stuff, as you know. But there are certain things to look for. And I'm not so sure that's the thing to go through on this, to start pointing those things out on YouTube. That's right.
Well, I'll tell you the one that I think you coined that's great, Scott, that you find in people who are up to no good, and that's extra face. Because when people are doing something wrong, they think everybody is looking at them. That's the problem. Even when no one is. And Scott, you can talk about what extra face is. But if you think people are looking at you, you're going to have extra face. Scott, you want to cover that?
Yeah. There's one time my brother's in the TV and movie business, and he was directing a TV show. And I went. I was in LA. I was like, hey. And he said, yeah, come down and we'll hang around. So I was watching him do this. And he kept yelling, cut. And he kept saying something to these people that were sitting, it was like in a dining area. And these people were sitting around. I said, and he said, dial it down a notch. Kept telling these people, I said, dude, I can't hear them saying anything. He said, it's not what they're saying. He said, watch them. And what would happen is these people, as if you're an extra and you're in a restaurant, watch Seinfeld, watch any show, or sometimes movies, they have a better handle on it. But you'll see people overdo it. They're not really talking. They're pretending to talk. So when they're saying, you know, your new haircut, man, your hairdo, that really looks good. I really like that. It really is good. What they'll do is this. They'll go, your haircut. They'll do all these things that they're miming haircut. So after that, then I started noticing they all had this goofy look on their face. And it wasn't a face of being goofy like you'd think we're goofy, but it was just, they were sitting there. And if you watch the Kardashians or any of those shows where they're live at home, but they're supposed to be, what do they call those shows?
Candid.
Yeah, but there's a name. Anyway, whatever the name for them is, you'll see people sitting around like this. They look like this. They've got this weird smile on their face, and there's nothing going on. They'll be watching TV and just, when I watch TV, I look like, I don't know what I look like. It's not like this. And you'll see this odd expression on people's faces because they know they're being watched, and they're trying to show the world their best face. They don't know what angle it is. They don't know what's happening or exactly where it's coming from, but that's the face you'll see. And when you see somebody who's doing something they shouldn't be doing, quite often you'll see that face too, like everything's fine. Just standing on this pleasant look. Yeah, this little pleasant look on their face where they should have their finger up their nose, or they should be biting their fingernails or looking at something or pretending nobody sees them spitting or adjusting something. So, and they don't do that, but extra face is a specific look. I talk about it in my book, Understanding Body Language. There's a whole thing on it. But that's one of the things you look for, like Greg was saying, was extra face. And once you start seeing it in movies and on TV, it is the weirdest thing, and it's so funny. You'll start pointing it out to people because those are the people that are aware something's happening. When it looks like there's just some action going on that's supposed to look like it just happened out of nowhere. No, you can always spot that it's fake when you see the people around them. Look at that expression on their face. If it's that goofy, I'm so comfortable, everything's okay smile, something's up at that point. They know what's happening.
Yep. Anytime somebody thinks someone is watching them, they're going to behave oddly. It's the nature of humans.
Of course, Greg squashes 4 minutes down into about 4 seconds. So there you
Remember,
go.
like I say, I work with soldiers. Everything's got to be compact and movable. That's the way our brains work. We're not big thinkers, I guess. Well, I'm not. I shouldn't say soldiers aren't. There's some damn big thinkers in the military. Kathy, is lie detection harder with someone who is telling a low-risk lie in a conversation, and are the signs more subtle or even present? It depends. Some people feel guilty for telling any little white lie, and some people can tell big whoppers without any kind of signal. Like you were saying earlier, Scott, if the amygdala doesn't kick in, remember, there's no sign of deception. There's only signs of discomfort or stress. So if a person's amygdala doesn't kick in, they can sit right there and go, yeah, I was Miss America in 1972 with no fear of stress. Or if there's no risk that something's going to happen to them if they get caught. I call that lying for sport. And some people will tell lies just to see what they can get away with as a test and then come back. But when we talk about lies, remember, I categorize them in 4 categories. I categorize them as omission, commission, embellishment, and transference. Of those, commission is the hardest because you have to make up something and you have to have a lot of supporting details. Omission is, and then passed over, verbal bridging, that kind of thing. As Jack Schaefer and Joe Navarro would call it, verbal bridging. You hop over a time frame, you hide time, is the way I typically have referred to it. Then so that's omission and commission. The next is transference. That's where I take your life and make it mine. I'll tell you, I was a music producer, and I use the details that Scott has given me about music production so that I sound credible. That's transference. And embellishments, the fish is this big. Those last two are the easiest to lie to. So usually when a person's going to lie, when a person's going to lie, they're going to use one of those last two, transference or embellishment. Hope that helps.
There are usually three emotions you'll see when somebody's lying, and that's going to be the guilt of lying. You'll see that quite often. The fear of being caught, and then what's the last one? Is duping delight or duper's delight. Those are usually the three emotional things that you'll see in there that are involved with lying anyway, quite often. And that's Paul Ekman. Which book would that be from? It would be from Unmasking the Face, I believe. I'm giving the right one.
I think you're right.
Sadie Rogers. Who's Sadie Rogers? Hi, Sadie, again. Sadie is on the behavior panel. Sadie is the one that makes sure everything goes smoothly. So thank God for her. Okay, what's your favorite thing to watch to practice reading body language on? I think the restaurant floor. That's one of my favorites. When Amber and I go out and eat somewhere, that's all we do is watch people. So we don't, that's really, isn't that horrible? But that's all we do is we watch people and talk about them. So if you ever see us out eating somewhere and you think we're not watching you, we're watching you. Get an eyeful. What do you got, Greg?
Airport. My favorite place in the world is the airport. I traveled a lot in my life, on average about 50 to 75,000 miles a year for the past 20 years or so. And you see a lot of people in airports. And it's not a normal place for most people. It's fun to watch when like a seasoned traveler, male, female, whichever, brings their children and their spouse, their whatever, and they travel. And they're the only one who's used to traveling. You get to see all kinds of dynamic and stress and all that. Right now is the time of the year. If you go to spring break and you see a father, a mother, and children hauling, it's interesting because the body language dynamics are so different. Somebody looks like they're on vacation. Another person looks like they're stressed because they need to be somewhere. It's always fun to watch.
Brennan asked another one. You all say you've done work with lawyers for trial preparation, et cetera. And we've done that with attorneys in here, actually, in the membership. Actually, won't call any names. But this is your career and how you make a living. How would you ever refuse to work or help a certain person on moral grounds? Would you ever? Yeah. Shoot, yeah, I have. I definitely have. There's some defense situations where I wouldn't do it. You can't say that after that because I wasn't going to work on this because, you can't do that. But yeah,
not professional.
I've turned down for sure. Yeah, because you look at it and you go, dude, I can't help this person. That's not right. But a lot of times with attorneys, it doesn't matter if it's right or not. It's the side that wins, being able to prove it with the law and all that.
Yeah. As they say, law is not about justice, it's about the law.
Yeah. Let's see here. If you want to join Body Language Tactics or Body Language Membership, excuse me, just go to bodylanguagemembership.com. Go there and look at the landing page and you'll see what it's about. So I don't have to go through that whole spiel again. But bodylanguagemembership.com. You'll have a blast. We're having a blast in here. And we do this, try to do it once a week, these live Q&As, but there's a lot more in there than just this. There's a whole community in there. It's like Facebook without any of the ads. And everything you see in here, everybody's just talking about this, body language. Let's see.
Here's funny. Lori says, I get in trouble because of my humor. That would make two of us probably, Lori. My sense of humor can be a
three of us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Ed, if you were an airborne infantryman, you certainly understand dark humor as a stress release. I'm sure we were in some of the same places at the same time. Unless you're much younger than me.
Here's one from Natalie Ellis, and she says, are politicians trained to chaff and redirect? Can you give a good example of a politician that lacks this skill or capacity? I'll tell you what, go watch Anthony Weiner. That's the worst I've ever seen in my life. That guy is the worst. To me, he was worse than Jussie Smollett, because his were so blatant and they were so obvious. What do you got on that, Greg?
Yeah, I don't know that if you mean trained, like someone sits and says, hey, just talk until. I don't think so. I think what happens in a lot of cases, if you watch them when they're young, is they get in front of the camera and they're trying to get to a point. They're trying to, try to answer the question, but they're also stressed. So their brain is talking in half sentences until they find something somebody buys into, and then they let them run with the ball, and it gives them a second to think, and they redirect the conversation. I think that's how chaff and redirect is born for most people, is they're uncertain. It's their feet paddling like hell under the water as they try to smoothly glide along like a swan. And I think part of that process is exactly what I was saying. I use it over and over and over. But the organism does what makes the organism successful. And after the first time they do it, then they're like, okay, I'm going to try that again. After the fourth time they do it, they don't have to try anymore. It just happens because they've been rewarded for it. And those little dopamine receptors just get really excited when they win. So I think that's part of it. I don't think if by that you mean formal training, Natalie, I don't think they are formally trained. I think it's formally trained. I think it's just flow. I think it's just what happens. It's kind of like if you do a thing enough times, it just becomes routine for you.
I've trained politicians to do that.
I'm not going to say. Again, clients you can't talk about, but
I'm not pointing any fingers either. Who else has?
They're all taught. They're just. It's not that formal. Hey, you should do
Notice
this.
the detail Greg has on all that. Notice the detail. What are emblems? Emblems are movements and cues, I guess, that have specific meanings. For example, this means something in America, but it means something completely different in the Middle East.
Yep.
When you go like that to the waiter or waitress, you're looking for a check, please. You see those, they have specific meanings, these little hand gestures and face movements and gestures we use, but they're really good when there's you see them a lot when there's supposed to be total silence. When you're dealing with SWAT teams or you're dealing with military teams moving around, you've got to have little things how you can talk back and forth. It's like in other words, it's a broad cultural form of sign language with not hundreds of cues and things, but quite a few that we all know. You know what those are, like. Yeah, hang on just a second. Yep. And that's a manipulator, or that's we have
regulator. Yep.
Regulator. Somebody earlier asked if there were other differences in manipulators and regulators. Regulators are the things you go, oh, hey, hang on just a second. Manipulators are the things you use where your one part of your body manipulates the other part of the body, like your hand. If you're doing this that would be an adapter, but it's this hand manipulating this hand, in other words.
Yeah, and there you're getting into kind of tacky things. What I would say is to remember this. If you can keep your head around, when we talk about these emblems, if you think about things that, Scott, you hit it dead on. The biggest thing is it has to be understood, and it can convey a sentence in a single movement. It's cultural often, because you can do this in some cultures, you can't in others. You may do this for speed up. All those things mean something, but it has to be, and you can't make up your own. If you're a small group, you can make up your own, but you can't suddenly go like this and it means something. So you got to figure out in the culture, what does it mean? And the article I put in this morning around lip pointing is a good example. In some cultures it's rude to point, so people point with their face.
Carrie has another good one. She says, what are some of your favorite moments on the behavior panel? My favorite thing in the world is when Chase forgets to unmute his mic. I love that. I cannot get enough of that because he gets on there. Well, you know how he is. And when he gets on, he takes that long pause always before he talks, and then he just gets in and starts selling it, man. Just like, oh, and we're just going. Sometimes we use extra face on that as well because we'll go over the top doing this, and that's what tips them off. So I always try to be still. That's my very favorite thing because he gets in there, he's just like selling it, man. And we're just going, yeah. So, but a lot of those things we'll cut out. We don't. In some spots we do take those out because it's not appropriate. On some things where they're lighthearted and where it's somebody that needs to have fun made of them. If they're a really bad person, but there's nothing horrible involved, then you'll see more of that. Because there's a lot of it that we take out or that I take out in editing. And a lot of times they don't know which ones I'm going to leave in and which ones I'm going to leave, or take out. So that kind of makes it fun as well. And sometimes I won't mention it to them. I'll say, oh yeah, don't worry, dude, I'll take it out. Not when I'm going, yeah, I'll take it out. But I go, oh, seriously, don't worry about it. And then I'll put it in. What about you, Greg?
Yeah, those are some of my favorites. I mean, just in general, I enjoy just us getting together every Tuesday and talking. We had a couple of recently funny things happening. Sometimes it's glitches and it's technology. One of the funniest, but not funny for us, is when we recorded I forget which one it was, and Prince Andrew, I think, the most recent one. We recorded the entire thing, 2 hours. We were talking. Then we go, oh, no, we forgot to record. And it's all of our jobs to make sure we record. No, but it's all of our jobs.
Yeah, but
our job to make sure the light's on.
We were on there just yeah.
Selling it, yeah.
Oh, man, it was, it
was a long one. It was a double episode
like 2 hours.
Night. I think we did.
We were 2 hours in. I'm like, oh, no. You're like, okay, guys, I'll see you in a bit. And I was like, oh, no, I went to turn it off. You know, it was stopped recording and I hadn't recorded it. But you know what, man? You guys are always cool about that. You've always, and I really appreciate that because nobody goes, oh, they all go, hey, well, shoot, we should have watched too.
Our job
I don't have that patience. Well, I would say that too, but I would not have the patience you guys have had when it's happened 2 times. Geez, just so you know, I wouldn't have the same patience you guys do. I don't think I would be livid at that point of view. You mean we sat here and did all this, and I would bring it up every time. Dude, last time you forgot so and so. Oh, but nobody has mentioned it since then. So that's what's so cool. I feel guilty for feeling that way.
It was actually funny when it first happened. And then you're like, oh, we got to do it again. It was funny. Yeah. I mean, we all laughed out loud. We're like, oh, it's kind of silly. Yeah. We've done this whole show, and then we're like, well, we got to resell. So, yeah, funny sometimes. Hey, Sonny has a great question. I had a really scary flight recently. Ironically, have you guys had a scary experience of any kind and then found yourself shocked by your own fear response? Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, one of the worst ones I had in years is walk up on a snake and almost step on the snake, a copperhead, not just a snake, a copperhead. And my body responded, not me. It was not my brain going, oh, a copperhead, and it's just because you see it at the last second and it's rising, and it scared the hell out of me. I mean, your body kind of jumps back and does its own thing, and then, of course, you deal with it from there. But yeah,
my worst one was the one that I remember a lot, and I just got revenge for this one because. And when I give you this situation, you'll understand why revenge was appropriate in this. My next door neighbor, and I have this thing where we just, every shot we get, man, we scare each other, scare the you-know-what out of each other. And,
it's dangerous where I live.
Well, not where we live, not where we are.
Yeah,
we live in condos. And we have a little thing there where when you're taking the garbage out, there's this brick wall there, but there's all these holes in it, So when you're walking by it, you don't see anything because all you see is the brick there. But if you look through the little holes through the other brick things, you can see people, right? So if he sees me coming out, if I see him coming out, then I wait till he gets down there putting his trash in, and then I get, and you can get, and it's low down, so you can get right on top of their head and go, what are you doing in there? Scared or whatever you're going to say. And the other day, man, I was there and I was putting the trash in. I was looking at something and he waited just at the right time. And he goes, is there a witch in there? Was there a witch in there? That's so stupid. But that put witch in my brain. All of a sudden I'm thinking, what? But I got him back. It was horrible. I waited till I got right up on him too, because I can almost get my face down to almost touch his head, And I said, what are you doing in there? And he did the scream. I don't usually scream, but I do the whole flailing thing because I'm just focused on putting the trash in. I shouldn't have told that story, I don't think.
Yeah, practical jokes are fun. It just depends on whether they're dangerous or not. That's the half the guys I've known, practical jokes were physical, and stuff could get really dumb. I worked in an Intel support center once where we had to outlaw doing practical jokes to people because they got so out of hand. I mean, it was ridiculous. Physical things, all kinds of stuff. It got to the point where the commander had to just come in and say, enough of that, no more.
There's a garbage can right here. Some people go, he's spitting his gum on the floor. There's a garbage can right there. Ed says, ghosts or Bigfoot on the behavior panel coming soon.
I pulled a Bigfoot last week. We're going to look at it and see. I pulled a good one. We'll look at it.
The behavior panel started because Greg and I were having conversations about doing videos on people who've seen Bigfoot. And so that's where it actually started, was saying, to make a long story short, months before the behavior panel.
Yeah.
But so Greg's dream is doing one on those. His dream is doing one of those.
I want to believe there's a Bigfoot somewhere, but
Do you?
The guys I've seen. Yeah.
Well, if I see one, the thing you do is, why don't you just shoot it? But man, it would be hard to shoot something that would look around and you go, "What's up?" Something that could do that to you. Check in with you. I couldn't do that.
Well, it depends on how close and how big the thing is, I guess.
Yeah, even if it was mad, shoot, you're just scaring it. It's like seeing a raccoon or something. People won't kill it.
I got really bad news for you, Scott. If a bear is angry with me and I scared it and it comes after me, it's getting shot. That's the way it works.
I don't like.
I'm not being bald.
I don't like bears. I'm not. I hate to say I'm not going to go. I'm not afraid of anything. But bears, I'm afraid of. They're fast, man. They're fast. I don't know if you've ever seen a bear run out in the wild.
I remember I wrestled about a 600-pound one when I was 18. I know how fast they are.
Let's hear that story, Greg.
No, I've told it before.
Yeah.
But it was a guy with a wrestling bear, and it was kind of a show. And if you go look up Victor the Wrestling Bear, you'll find it. And he went all over the U.S., and I was living in Columbus, Georgia. Came to the mall, and I had big red hair. I went up and said, hey, I want to wrestle the bear. And the guy said, this is just for celebrities, get lost. Okay, cool. I walk away, and the newscaster comes up, sportscaster, and he goes, there's no way in hell I'm going in there with that bear. So the guy remembered me because of big red hair and said, hey, Red. I went in, fought him for 2 minutes or whatever it was. It was kind of fun, but scary because he was contained. Of course, it wasn't a bear, with claws coming to try to get you. But yeah, it was interesting.
I don't like bears, man. That's
600 pounds. Yeah, when you go in there with a bear, you're thinking, okay, I've got a strategy. A bear has a strategy too. Beat you up, and it works.
Jeez. Yeah, I don't do bears. Greg, I think many vets have spent too much time in the woods to believe in Bigfoot. Oh, I thought it was going to be a question.
That's it. I tell people a story. I was with a kid when I went through SEER who had never been out in the woods. I mean, he'd been through basic training and that, but he was a young guy. And we were in North Carolina, and he came and told me he saw a Bigfoot. And this is why I always believe that, Scott, because I went over, and it was a deer standing on its back legs eating acorns out of a tree. And if you've never seen a deer standing on its back legs, you might think that's a Bigfoot. But I agree with you, Ed. I think spend enough time in the woods around Fort Bragg. If there's anything ever going to be anywhere, it's out in Uwharrie and those places. And I didn't see anything.
Here's one from Norma. And she says, Scott, if dealing with a psychopath, is it better to pretend you agree with them instead of confronting them or calling out some stupid thing they're saying? Yeah, if it's a psychopath, if you think it might really be one, then yeah, you want to agree and get away from them. All you're dealing with there basically is an ego. So as long as you don't brush up against that ego, you'll be fine. Because when you do that, when you I don't want to say hurt their feeling, but when you bother one of them like that, when you hit that ego, they get revenge. Not like I'm getting revenge on Ray, but because we're just scaring each other. That's fun. But like revenge being mean. So yeah, just be nice and agreeable and get away from them and stay away from them if at all possible. That's the best thing you can do. Because quite often, like we were saying, they haven't killed anybody or anything like that. They have that mean in them still, though. They may not take it that far and be smart enough to know they better not do that. So
yeah, and just remember again, I like all people. Psychopaths are different people, and you don't know what their experience or exposure to life is. So it's hard to say a psychopath will, right? But the point is not to push buttons, yeah, because you never know. Sadie, I'm not surprised you had a bear in your backyard.
Yeah, Sadie, they have apartments over there, probably where you live. That's probably where they originate.
Okay, couple more.
Let's see.
Let's make sure we do a couple.
Can we have a book suggestion for the April book club? Yeah. One of the first books I always go to is I Can Read You Like a Book. And it was one of Greg's books from a while back. Such a great book. It's called I Can Read You Like a Book. Really, really good. I know, Greg, you hit other ones, but man, I really like that book. That's really good. I really like that one. I know my favorite one is The Most Dangerous Business Book You'll Ever Read. That's a great one, especially for business. But in this case, I think I Can Read You Like a Book is a great one. Or How to Spot a Liar. Jeez.
What's funny is I Can Read You Like a Book was my second book, and it wasn't something I really wanted to write right off. They came and asked me for kind of an anecdotal book, and I wrote it that way. How to use this and that kind of thing. Not really my original thought. They titled the book, of course, great. Career Press has been great to me, and they titled that book. They titled How to Spot a Liar. I would have called it something stupid, and they came up with that brilliant title. And I thought there must already be a book called that, but there wasn't. So it was fun. That was a fun book to write.
Yeah.
I had to adjust it some over the years, but yeah. because world's changed so much.
Sam says they've done that one.
Okay, cool.
Geez. Oh, what's another good one?
Well, thank you for doing that book, guys. And like I said, it was fun to write. It was one of those.
Look at my Kindle one more time.
I always have my go-tos, but let me think of body language-wise what I would do. You guys have already done Scott's book, I think. Have you done Mark's Truth and Lies?
That's a
Mark and Tracy's?
It's a good book. That's a tough one to get, man. On Amazon, it's like...
Is it?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, you can get it on... I was drinking a bunch of this water, so I'm burping every 5 seconds. You can get it on your Kindle cheap, but man, the book itself, when I look it up on Amazon, it's really expensive. So that might not be the way to go with that. Let's see. There are some really good ones, though. Joe Navarro's books are always good. All of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like there's a shortage of books we could get from Mark either. So let's get a listing. We'll put it out in the inside for you guys.
Yeah.
A couple of suggestions. How's that? Because I want to make sure. I mean, I think that's a great book by Mark and Tracy, and you'd have a good time with it. And you just did Chase's. We can get a couple of others. I would suggest John's book, but it's for a specific audience, an elicitation book, confidential. And John has copies of that we can buy if you decide you want to go that way.
This one, Unmasking the Face, is good, but it's more technical, really, it's more analytical than anything. It's.
I can go to one of my all-time favorites. You may or may not enjoy as much.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one.
Great book. It teaches you to think differently. And for me, it was an underpinning to start thinking of humans as communicating differently before we got to the point where language is so powerful. So, yeah.
Have you looked at us over here on the web, man?
I try not to.
Look how pale I am. In real life, I'm so pale, if I take my shirt off, you can see my heart like a newborn fish. But on there, man, I look like there's something wrong with me.
Sunlight, Scott, sunlight. Summer's coming.
I've got a moon tan. So, yeah, maybe I'll get out and I got a tan last summer, man. I was out in the sun some. Not as much as Chase, but I still did get some.
I think if you go to like Trump.com, you could probably find out where he gets his.
Give me a spray on.
I don't know where he gets it, but yeah.
Who
knows? Maybe that's real.
Consuming.
Yeah.
Who knows?
By the way, guys, if you heard me say that, it's not a political statement. Nothing to do with the guy. Just the color. Just the color.
Yeah. Oh man!
It's like a hairstyle.
In the comments on the behavior panel, they're telling us what political side we're on. Like if you knew how non-political I was, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, not that I don't care. I do care, but I just don't have time to get into all that.
Well, I always say to people, look, as many different channels as I've done TV for, I just try always to be about the person, what I see, not about whatever's going on in politics.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You always
especially in the world we're in right now with the war going on and all that, guys. Lots of people are going to be angry with each other over something. We need less reasons to be angry with each other and more reasons just to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, one last.
Greg out spreading love around the world.
Yeah, that's me.
He's always talking about that. He's always talking about spreading love. Spreading it around the world.
That's me. Kumbaya, Scott.
I'll see what's another good one. Why don't we go ahead and start wrapping this up?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
On this one.
Hey, I did see a couple of questions. Somebody said, are we going to go to UK, or is that just a rumor? Well, as of right now, it's a rumor, but we are in Vegas, July 7th through the 10th. Love to see you guys there and go from there. Snakes and Suits is a good book, Norma. That's another one of Hare's books. It's a great book. Good suggestion. Lori, I agree with you. Truth and Lies is a good book. Sonny, I'll tell you one last thing. You say my Audible book that I narrated it was awesome. I will say this. Of all the things I've ever done in my life, that was the most complicated thing I've ever done. It was just difficult for me because you're sitting there and we got sound engineers working with us and I'm reading my words abridged. It was just odd, but it was a great experience. People made it work out. And so I have 2 books I narrated that were mine and they were fun.
I thought that was a great book, man. I think you should do all yours.
I'm glad everybody thinks so. It was stressful for me when I was doing it though.
Well, you have a voice for that. You have that. You can pull that off. I don't think I could. I think I would just.
You're kidding, right? You're kidding.
No, I don't think I could do. I don't think I could like sit down and read a whole book like that though, and keep the same. There's an art to it. You got to keep the same tone and do the same stuff. I'm sure. Maybe I should try that. Maybe I'll give it a shot and just see. Because I didn't do mine. They had somebody else do it.
Well, some of mine are done by other people. There's a couple of mine that are done by actors. But yeah, those first two I did. I can read you like
Tyler does those. Tyler's doing something.
We should talk to Tyler.
Yeah.
I'd love to have him do something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hi, Tyler.
He's got a great voice for that.
Yep.
So, well, listen, thanks you guys so much for coming here and spending your time with us. If you want to join Body Language Membership, just go to bodylanguagemembership.com. At least take a look at the landing page so you'll get an idea of what we're doing. Like we said before, we have the best time in there, and there are so many people in there now. It's like it's really turned into its own community, and there's people running things like Sam in the book club. There's so many people that are running so many different things in there. The thing is really blowing up. So, and it's the only membership site of its kind. So get in there and at least take a look and see what you think. If you only go in for a month, at least go in and decide. At least go to the landing page and get a look at it, But thanks so much for being here and doing this with us. We really do appreciate it. If you want to join, go to bodylanguagemembership.com, and then we'll see you next time. Hi, and welcome to Body Language Membership.